Hello, everybody. As global pioneers in drone aerial autonomy, this company is revolutionizing the way we see the world from the skies with their amazing drone-in-a-box automation solutions. Let me introduce Hextronics. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Builder Nation. Today, we're joined by Curt Lary, the CEO and lead engineer at Hextronics. So please, could you introduce yourself a little bit, Curt? Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, sure, Sam. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm Curt Lary. I'm out of South Florida in Miami, and I founded Hextronics somewhat in my garage just about 3 years ago. And since then, we've been building products for drone autonomy that are deployed and active across the world. So yeah, pleasure to touch more on that and get right into it.
Yes, let's dive right into it. Actually, you already mentioned sort of the very first thing that I wanted to pretty much talk and discuss, right? Which is the fact that you engineered this pretty much sort of this idea sort of came out all of you. So first of all, could you please tell us a little more about the products that Hextronic builds and how they sort of came to life? How do you come up with these ideas?
Mhm. Yeah, sure. So it's a long story, but we got a bit of time. So let me kind of go into my background, how I started, because growing up and all throughout high school and through college, I always listened to podcasts kind of like this that are about entrepreneurship and engineering, and I always kind of took what I learned from them and helped me build kind of where we are today and where we're going. And so I started off with entrepreneurship background in high school with a bike rental program within my community that was later taken, adopted, and scaled throughout a couple other communities. And then from there, in college, I developed a small little pencil sheath that was like a Assassin's Creed blade, but for a pencil. And I started
Wow.
marketing and selling it. Yeah, and from that I kind of thought, okay, I do like product development. I like finding a customer base and building something that's somewhat cool and makes people go, that's hilarious, or wow, that's really cool. And after that, I got into electronics. I went to Georgia Institute of Technology studying mechanical engineering, but also had kind of a love for microelectronics and computer programming. And so I got into building circuit boards for different applications and eventually made a robot that delivered food. It would actually drive on these little train tracks on top of the restaurant or on top, just under the ceiling, and would pick up food from the kitchen and deliver them. And through that, we deployed it at an actual restaurant and had been working live for multiple weeks at a time, doing dozens and dozens of automated deliveries. And then COVID kind of shut me down. And so I had a period to reflect, and I really wanted to be building things that move in the environment and things that really can play a critical role in society, and something that also can't get shut down by COVID. And so I got into drones because, yeah, they can operate in any environment. And I started looking around for problems to solve in this industry because, yeah, I could build something cool that would be a gadget, but if it wasn't solving a critical problem, then it wouldn't really go anywhere. And so I reached out to a bunch of groups that were developing automatic drones and understood that they needed a nest for these drones that they were using for different applications. And so that's where we came to our first product. After about a year of development, we came out with the Hextronics Global. And that system, yeah, kind of named Global because it was acquiring interest from all around the world. And I don't know, I thought it was a cool name at the time. And
It is
so
a cool name.
so with that, we made it work for the Mavic 2. And ever since then, we have been kind of growing our portfolio of products and really scaling to a variety of different customer needs.
I mean, I've definitely seen that you have very much diverse your portfolio, but I think there are many things that we can touch from this answer. I'm trying really hard not to delve deeper into that Assassin's Creed like device because I'm a huge fan of the franchise.
Mhm.
That's besides the point. um, the first thing that I actually wanted to ask you is, I mean, you already mentioned that you sort of started over with this sort of delivery system for restaurants and foods, and then during the pandemic, you sort of had to stop and then revalidate yourself in the drones. Did you have did you already have any experience in the drone industry in the drone world prior to the pandemic? Maybe just flying drones, using them, or a little something more advanced.
Yeah, I always love flying drones for Christmas every year. I would get some drone or helicopter that I would immediately take outside and either lose in the woods or crash. I remember one time I had a little helicopter for Christmas, and it flew and landed right in a sewer grate, and it fell through the crack, and we had to lift up the sewer grate, hold my little sister by her ankles to go grab it out of the
No.
sewer. Yeah, and then I kind of got a Phantom One from DJI,
Yeah, right.
and that really set me on the course of, hey, look, these things are getting to be stable to the point where they can actually do something and not just be
Right.
a toy. Hmm.
Right, right. I mean, originally, I know that the drones were more of a flying remote control car, which was just for a toy, really. But yes, I
Hmm.
agree with you that the DJI sort of brought it to the next level. I personally have flown a DJI Phantom 3 and a Mavic Air 2, I believe. So my question to this is: these two that I explained are very drastically different drones, right? And now I want to delve right into your solution, which is your drone in a box solutions. Okay, you have
Hmm.
the Atlas for battery swapping. You have what you mentioned, the Global, right? You have also a Hextruck, which is like a portable one.
Hmm.
These devices that you have developed are compatible with determined drones, right? Some heavy duty drones, some a little
Hmm.
more, lighter ones. Could you please explain to us how these drone in a box solution came to life and what parameters did you follow to determine which drones are the ones that you should be, making compatible for them? How did you
Hmm.
decide?
Yeah, sure. So there was a ton of ways we could have gone from the beginning. We could have gone out and tried to build the entire system, the drone, the software, the nest, the battery, everything in
Right.
one. But I was just some kid in the garage, and I definitely didn't have the bandwidth to do all of that. And so I focused on the one part that was kind of missing and took the most available components in the industry. And so we started off with the Mavic 2, kind of like you were talking about, that was very
Mm-hmm.
widespread, had a good open source API architecture of sorts so that you could command and control it just with an Android based machine.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, a wide variety of people were developing on it. And so what I really wanted to build was something that can be used at scale by a variety of people and solution providers for different industries, and at a cost that really the could make a difference that the customer would afford. Because you could
Right.
always say, oh, go charge a small fortune for one of those things, but I always
True.
feel like that doesn't really get you very far in the reach and the application and just the ability that it provides to the rest of really the builders. And so we really tackled the problem of making a nest that supports industry leading drones that have a open architecture so
Mm-hmm.
people can build what they want to build with autonomous drone technology.
Right, and now you actually touched a couple of things that I want to delve deeper into, right? But before that, I guess it's worth going a little back into taking a notch back, just into a more general overview, right? So
Mhm.
back in the day, we already had over on the podcast Vad Milnik, who is another industry leader, like just like yourself, who builds drone in a box, right? And in that interview, we learned that the drone in a box concept is basically that there are sort of the these boxes that drones can land in autonomously, whether it is unload payload, charge payload, swap the batteries, etc. Right? That is sort of the drone in a box concept. When you began working on this idea, was there already a drone in a box solution in the market that you sort of could take as a maybe as an example, or maybe to sort of figure out a path to do your own version of it, or was there really nothing at all as for a drone in a box solution?
Yeah, no, there were definitely whispers in the wind. I remember, I think early 2020, there was the Skydio dock, the first one that was at a construction site.
Oh,
Um, and of course, everyone, or at least the people who are keyed into the industry, were kind of like you're trying to battle like Goliath, or just you're trying to come into a market and get absolutely stepped on in some regard. But I took it to the point of, I think there's another market that we're really going after that's a bit more connected and open.
hmm,
And that's where I feel like we made our differentiation rather early, and where we are able to now provide the systems at the fidelity and the capability that we've built with the fantastic team that we have here at Hextronics. And so yeah, I definitely saw other big machines. There was Aerobotics, that pretty large nest, very cool. I think it also did
hmm.
battery swapping with like robot arms, like 6 degree of freedom robot arm or something.
Wow,
Yeah, it
seems
absolutely,
overkill, but wow.
it blew me away. And I just thought, you know what, if I can make it as simple as possible, like small, modular, portable, and user friendly, then maybe some people will use it.
Right, and that's actually pretty cool. Thank you very much for sharing that. Now I want to jump into Hextronics straight up, like your own devices, right? So you already mentioned that the very first product that you built, right, the very first iteration was the global,
Hmm.
right? So my question is, first of all, how long did it take you to develop that? How many people did you have to get on board with it, maybe for the software side, or help you with the mechanical part? And
Hmm.
how has it evolved over the years?
Yeah, so the global, pretty much we started on it in 2021, and really brought it into a production level system in 2022. And that's with
Wow.
the added capability of all of our supporting beta customers at the time,
Mhm.
who really we've gotten pretty close with, and gone through quite a few different scenarios that are exciting, and definitely build grit in
Right.
a hardware founder, right? You've always got to go through things like that. And so throughout time, it's matured quite well. More and more people believe in it when they put it out in the field and run 50 flights in a row, and they say, okay, I guess I can't return this thing. It actually works, you know.
Okay.
And then it's really brought an extreme amount of understanding on the capability of the Hextronics team for hardware manufacturing, as we've learned a tremendous amount in deploying nests or systems in a variety of environments, extremely dusty like the desert, and hot like up to 120 degrees, or cold and windy and stormy,
Hmm.
all playing a factor on a system that's got to keep the drone cool and dry in all of these different environments, and really understanding the core of that, and building it with somewhat of a shoestring budget with a team that's still learning, definitely is a challenge, and we're still getting after it today, but
Hmm.
we have learned an extreme amount that we continue to deploy on our systems worldwide. And so yeah, there's a significant engineering team here. At the beginning, it was just me putting the screw holes in the sheet metal. But now we've got just under 10 engineers here that are constantly
Nice.
upgrading and perfecting the designs of our of our systems, and it's really amazing
Right.
what they're capable.
Now, and that's actually very, very cool. Now, I do have one question. You already mentioned that you were very close to the beta testers, your beta customers, right? Was there
Mhm.
maybe any particular update or upgrade that you added to the global after these, feedback was received? Like something that was a huge game changer to the device,
Mhm. To the
to the
to the
global?
global, we had a update that we called the Global Advanced, because at the time the Mavic 2 Enterprise Advanced came out, and so we
Mhm.
somewhat did a marketing or branding push behind that. And believe it or not, one of the best upgrades that people liked was the fact that the roof would hinge when you opened it, so it would stay on. Um, or actually a big part as well was converting our cooling system from thermoelectric to compressor based, which is a small caveat, but it's just an increase in performance
Right.
across the board for a decrease in overall like energy expenditure. So that helped a lot, saving energy for a bunch of people so they could deploy them in different
All right.
locations.
Yeah, those definitely seem like pretty game-changing changes. So, well, upgrades, right? So thank you for sharing. I was just very curious about that. But now, I want to jump into the whole other side of your products, right? We already touched a little bit about the global, right, and more or less of these these hardware-enabled devices. We still gotta talk about the Atlas and the Hextruck. But before I want to talk about your software, right, which is a whole other aspect of Hextronics, the Hex Vision software. Could you please give us a sneak peek of what it is? How did it come to happen, and what are the benefits of somebody using it?
Mm. Yeah, so Hexvision software, right now it's pretty much what people have been asking for as we deploy these systems across different environments. And so it is somewhat particular to individual use cases. Say
Mm.
we build a particular sensor integration or something like that, or we
Mm.
build triggers for drones to launch to particular locations given personnel detection or camera feed. And so really it's a computer vision tool that then integrates with an overarching site management capability. And so right now we offer that software really only to people using Hextronics that
Mm-hmm.
we've chosen because their application is directly along our development vision. And we really think that a lot of people are brilliant when it comes to making software for drone systems, drone in a box.
Oh.
And there is a tremendous amount of people leveraging Hextronics now to build solutions 10 times more powerful than Hexvision is today. And
Wow.
with that, it's groups like Flightbase and Vodex and a few other providers that are not only opening our nest for higher level commands, but also doing different levels of data analysis and integration themselves. And so it's really an honor to be working with these groups. And I only see that this community is going to grow and flourish as our technology and the rest of drone in a box technology across the world advances. I really think it is somewhat like like the age of the early PC, when a variety of different applications and operating systems all integrated with different hardware, seeing really which one's going to advance for particular industries. Yeah, that's how I think it
Right.
is.
This triggers one question that I was kind of trying to save it for a later moment of the interview, but I mean, it is perfectly lit up. Where do you think that the drone in a box industry, specifically that niche market, where do you think it's going?
Hmm.
Where do you think
Uh,
it's, yeah, headed?
yeah, well, continue to dedicate everything I do towards furthering this industry because I really think it's one that's headed towards like kind of everyone's dream of like the a futuristic city where you've got kind of robots moving around everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got them all completing different tasks for different groups, all adding to the benefit of society. And I really
Right.
think that it's only going to grow in the capabilities that are provided as the drones get more powerful. The drone stations become more cost effective, easier to deploy, and just as there's more availability of an automatic drone and data that can be captured reliably and routinely from the sky, and making that available to to the general public of developers and people that are passionate about this industry.
Mhm.
It's kind of my motivating force in the morning. Yeah.
And
Uh, mhm.
that's a very thoughtful answer, because I can definitely see you leading the charge for the future. That's actually pretty amazing. But I want to go back then to the technology itself, okay, to the actual devices, because I'm an engineer myself, and I just I wanna talk specifically about the Atlas battery swapping, the dronist, right, that you built, because
Mhm.
I have to say it, out of all of the devices that I've seen from guests and that they have shared, this one seems to me like the most all around useful, in the sense that most people can take advantage of of a battery swapping tech, right? Um,
Mhm.
how did you specifically come up with it, and what drones are um, compatible with the Atlas battery, the
Mhm.
Atlas drone?
Yeah, so it was 100% customer driven. We made the global, and then we said, you know what, we're smart engineers. We can figure something else out. What do you customers want? What are you hungry for? Um,
Right,
Basically, they unanimously shouted at us, make something for the M300, or for a high payload drone, right?
uh-huh.
Something that can actually lift something strong. Um, and so that's our answer with the Atlas. It really was a joint engineering force with the team here that did it. I can't take all the credit. It was really the engineers behind it,
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
helped put it all together and bring it to where it is today. And the reason why the need was there for such a system is just because of the capability of high payload drones in a variety of different industries beyond just inspection, like the
Hmm.
global enabled. And so these drones now can enable automatic drone delivery from a variety of different locations, somewhat a
Right,
distributed drone delivery network, or they can carry extremely high payload cameras and sensor systems like LiDAR, thermal, high capability, high
right.
megapixel imagery, like carbon dioxide sniffers, a variety of different tools that enable large enterprise market opportunity. Um, and from that, we really doubled down to develop a nest that's extremely rugged, can withstand a
Hmm.
variety of different of just difficult environments, and really hold the test of time throughout over 5 years. And because I really feel that if you want a drone nest to
Hmm.
be continuously capable, it needs to be very rugged if you're going to deploy it reliably and scalably across basically your fleet of different sites.
Right, right.
Yeah, and with that, we built we built a drone nest that could fit in the back of a pickup truck, pretty much, to be easily transported around and then forklifted to wherever the end site is.
Wow.
And it's extremely powerful. We house 8 different batteries that enables the drone to maintain near constant uptime.
Hmm.
And on top of that, you can download the data from any of the different sensors and house your own like high power companion computer within the nest that maintains a comfortable temperature,
Hmm.
and as well as a significant amount of power and temperature. Basically, yeah, high amount of power for computing.
Right. I mean, the very fact that it's already, transportable in a pickup truck is already pretty amazing. And it is definitely one that I'm really curious. Um, the Atlas, for you to explain to me, it was sort of like the birthplace for the hex truck, right? The hex truck being
Mhm.
this the movable one, right? What are the main differences on the actual usage for these two devices?
Yeah, so we also had the global in a hex truck mount. It actually had a
Oh,
little it was on a little truck bed that you can like slide in and out, and you can also just deploy it from the bed of the truck as well.
oh,
And then the one of the main design constraints was, okay, this the Atlas still needs to be able to fit within the bed of a truck because people are just going to need to transport it efficiently.
mm-hmm.
And so the it just like everything we said, that the design came from the necessity, and so it needed to be small enough to fit within the bed of the truck so that it could be easily transported and easily deployed at a variety of different sites. So say you've got a construction
Mm.
site that you're now managing. Well, you pull up with the Atlas in the bed of it, and it will run the automatic missions to do full LiDAR scans,
Oh,
photogrammetry, and any other detection, and then
mm,
return right back to the nest. And so that's even, say you just bring the truck there, you park the car, and then you plug the nest in, and then it's just resting there with
mm-hmm.
the unit in the back, ready to be launched and deployed at all times. So yeah, just enabling a higher level um, of of mobility to these systems.
Right. Now, this actually triggers one very quick question to me. Now, I know that the DJI software, I'm not sure if the heavy payload ones have the same, but the DJI software has these return to home, like automatic, well, that it does that. You click it and it returns to the exact same port where it took off in the first place. But it has a certain margin, right? A margin of error. Like
Mhm.
it doesn't, it's not going to land specifically exactly in the exact same spot, but it's going to have a little wiggle room. How did you address this specific issue for for the hex truck? Is it maybe that the nest itself is very large as to accommodate this sort of wiggle room, or did
Mhm.
you work around with the software to make sure it is far more accurate?
Yeah, so this is where partnerships like Flight-Based and Votics come in, as that's kind of the piece of the puzzle that they own. And so we work with them. They land the drone back on the nest with visual precision, and so they
Ooh,
use just like April tags or AR tags to then centralize the drone to perform precision landing. And so typically we light up this tag so it can land at day or night. And then once the drone lands, its accuracy is under 10 centimeters, which is good enough for the Atlas.
wow.
As then we center it automatically with some centering motors
Mhm.
and bring it right back inside. And so it can be done with visual precision landing or also RTK based precision landing. So just a higher fidelity GPS lock that enables for under 10 centimeters of precision as well. And
Wow.
that's how we're able to do it. That's the spec that we designed the Atlas for, and that's how we land on it every single day.
I mean, it's actually a very clever workaround, and as you said, it's the power of partnerships, right? Now, before
Mhm.
carrying on, I want to touch already a little more into the use cases for this, right? But before we do that, I mean, to the viewers that we currently have over here, first of all, thank you very much for joining us over on this episode. Feel free to leave your comments or questions in the chat box, right? So we can read them together, Curt and me. And well, if it's a question for Curt, then he can answer it without a problem. Just throwing it in there, throwing it out there in case anybody has a question. If not, just keep enjoying the conversation. Right now, as I was mentioning, regarding these use cases that you mentioned, you keep bringing the example out for a construction site, right? But one of the things that I first thought when I was learning about the hex truck and exploring about it is, does it actually have any? Has it already been applied, or does it have potential to be applied, for example, for first responders? Maybe in
Mhm.
a disaster of some sort, or some emergency situation. The fact that this is a movable one with a lot of autonomy attached to it, it seems from the outside like it has a lot of potential to help out first responders in any sort of emergency, right? Has it been used for this? Is it planned to be used for this, or is it not prepared to be?
Yeah, so our so the global and similar birth of the Hex truck
Mhm.
from the disaster response community. And so the whole reason why we needed to make it transportable in the first place was because, hey, there's an emergency happening, there's a forest fire, there's a landslide, there's a hurricane, and you need to get eyes on the scene immediately. Well, that immediately brought us to develop a Nest that's completely portable, links into cellular or Starlink communication, and can stream video feed and command and control to any operator across the planet, just as long as they've got someone on site to bring the Nest to the location. And
Wow.
from this, the Atlas also came into play there to be enabled for first responder use cases. And we have a great partnership with a group out in Central California who does first response to firefighting scenarios. And so with a fire detection
Hmm.
camera sensor, they launched the drone to the location. It's our group called Thor Enterprises. They're really great to work with. Extremely great partnership that we've got there, and that's really where one application that we have for first response to say natural disasters
Hmm.
comes into play with our technology. And then yeah, the Atlas, more to your point on first responder use cases, is being used right now in the bed of a few pickup trucks for first response, but really is looking towards the networked capability for having a couple atlases deployed across the city and having them always
Oh,
ready to launch to a particular location. And so that's really where you can have a reliable Nest on scene, always ready to go, that you can depend on and not need to say truck to the location. And that's really where we see the growth of using drone as a first responder,
right.
is these different sites deployed across the city to then have the quickest response to any 911 or emergency call.
Wow, that is actually very, very cool. And now, this also triggers a different question that I have for you. I mean, you've already talked a lot about the development of devices, about partnerships, about these use cases. And also, you mentioned that the team is just under 10 engineers total. I have to
Mhm.
say that's, I mean, it's crazy. So, I have my question to you is more in the business side of this, right? You're
Mhm.
not just the lead engineer, you're the CEO of this company. So how do you juggle all of these partnerships, development, R&D, engineering, sales, etc.? How do you juggle all of this um, with a small team that you have?
Mhm. Yeah, well,
Very
I didn't
curious.
say that I slept a lot, but a lot of the time, engineering and focus on the product does make a lot of the other part a bit easier. And the more that we can really focus on developing high quality systems that really easily integrate with the customer experience, the easier the business side of things are. Because then the more people talk about the product, the more people say, "Oh my gosh, I love using Hextronics." I know they're just a little group of engineers out of Miami, but
Hmm.
but damn it, they did it, you know.
Nice.
And that's exactly the goal every day. But yeah, we do work very strongly with partners and groups across the world that help us scale the technology and really add their own value to the system. And it really would not be possible without groups like that that
Nice.
truly can come in and support the mission and can then leverage our capabilities for their applications.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Now, following this same line of being the CEO, I have a very interesting question that I think is going to be very interesting. Now, typically, To my guests, I like to ask them how did they handle, for example, the supply chain issues during the pandemic. But in your case, you already mentioned that the pandemic was sort of a restarting point for you. You jumped from these restaurant devices into drones, right? So my question to you with around this topic is, what did you learn, or what did you see that during the pandemic, during the supply chain issues that were going on, during all of this procurement chaos that was happening
Mhm.
pretty much around the globe? What did you learn out of it that you implemented in Hextronics that otherwise would have been a lot harder to implement?
Okay. Let's see. Well, for one thing, I learned that people could charge upwards of $200 for a Raspberry Pi. Uh, that brought me to tears. Um,
Gets
but
you thinking, yeah.
on top of that, it really kind of focused us on understanding where we could get supply chain in the short term. So, say, just acquiring components for say products that we needed to produce in the next couple of weeks, versus planning production for products that we needed to produce, basically 25 plus systems, and then we could architect our supply chain around. And so it all comes down
Right.
to planning of different timelines, when you understand what you're going to need in the short term versus what you're going to need in the long term, planning out production for a product that is to handle. And that's really where, I mean, suppliers like Amazon have come in really clutch for us, because if there's some motor
Okay.
or bearing that we've been waiting on from a supplier across the world, um, that we can source simply through Amazon, it does help when times are tough. But
Right.
on top of that, it does really show how much local manufacturing can help as well. When lead times like that, and supply chain uh, parts that could be disturbed, say in like bearing or motor manufacturing, to have more of those local would really shorten that timeline down. Just because it's got to ship uh, a few hundred miles rather than a few thousand miles, you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a very clever thing to sort of build a whole supply chain process around what's available, right? And
Mhm.
yeah, I'm pretty sure nobody did that pre-pandemic, or at least it was not common. So it's great to see how the pandemic, even without a business, you still learn something out of it, which is really cool. Thank you very much for sharing that. But let's get back to the engineering part of this, right? I'm having so much fun and I'm learning a lot about it.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to also to talk more specifically about what you already mentioned about partnerships, right? About this distribution of of the network. How do these partnerships help you keep carrying on with R&D and development? R&D, development of existing devices, and maybe even bringing ideas for new devices. How do these partnerships influence your production and your decision making?
Yeah, well, mainly I'd say that a lot of the partnerships that we do have are with solution providers and software engineering
Hmm.
firms that really help us get our head out of the weeds. So I mean, we're in the garage all the time, right? Screwing stuff together, figuring out why a motor is turning an extra 20 degrees, something like that, trying to make these holes align in the sheet metal as we go through production, and partners that have a really close touch with partners and other customers that they've been working with for years is really where uh, we have been able to really come together on our partnerships. And so, for instance, some software providers have been working with other groups for years and years, basically helping enable their drones or other flight operations for them. And then coming to the point where, hey, now they want to talk about a nest. Okay, let's show them Hextronics and see what Hextronics can do here.
Right.
And that's really where we do leverage the reach and the capability of these partnerships that are able to bring us into conversations that a kid in his garage could not have made on his own a couple years ago. And definitely what we have been able to grit our teeth over and spend sleepless nights trying to provide solutions for some of the largest groups in the world, and that's really powerful to us.
It is really powerful. That's actually very very cool to know. Following this same line, and out of these partnerships, what is perhaps one of those maybe industries or use cases that you would really like to break to, right? To break through these industry that maybe these partnerships are sort of the way to go, or that are really helping you get to where you want to be. Is there any example for that?
Well, I mean, the best thing is the solution providers or the solution engineers that are completely focused on a vertical.
Mm,
Because from our point of view, it does take time to flesh out a vertical and really get to the level of solution that's going to scale.
right,
And we want to supply those solution providers as much as possible so that they can reach the scale without needing to worry about the hardware. And so to the
right.
point of say a vertical is agriculture, and it's going to be tough for Hextronics to go talk to a variety of different agricultural groups while we've still got to worry about building our systems properly and designing them properly and
Right,
ensuring everything
of course.
is up to spec. And so we really do rely on partners and vertical solution providers to leverage our technology and capability to ensure that they've got a vertical system that they can come to a customer with a solution. And so, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of verticals, and it's tough for us to pick one, as we've really just focused on the vertical of, hey, the problem that we're solving is the drone needs to be stored properly and recharged.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the problem that we're going to directly solve. And then the groups that can benefit from that are direct are the solution that they have the problem, that's the solution that we've solved.
Right, right.
So yeah, it's tough for us to just go overextending on a single vertical, while the vertical that we really are interested in is providing the best housing for a drone.
Right, absolutely. And that has impacted, we already discussed this, right? First responders. It also helps construction, agriculture, public safety, etc. Right?
Mhm.
I do have these question that I like asking because there's always some story, right? Is if there is maybe a specific use case or a specific application of your devices that you just never saw coming, like somebody just applied
Mhm.
it for something that was totally not expected.
Yeah, I mean, there's a variety of use cases. Let me think of one that kind of got me weird. There's one, counting cattle was one that I hadn't really expected out the get-go, especially for the Atlas. But there's a really great group now called Cattle Quants that's using our system to really count and ensure the health of cattle that are grazing. And with that, it's somewhat an interesting niche that definitely I could have never found. I don't have the connections with Hextronics,
Right.
doesn't have those kind of relationships, but they're just one that say, hey, I've got my problem is I need to store a really powerful drone and launch it on routine. And
Hmm.
so we say, hey, we do that. And and then they took it from there and really made a pretty interesting capability for livestock monitoring. There's also
Wow.
a group out in South Africa that does like poaching or does security against poachers. So they survey natural landscapes and basically ensure that no one is trying to poach like a rhino or something like
Right.
that.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's actually pretty. That's a very cool application. I did not expect it, but it's very cool. Um,
Mhm.
That's amazing. Thank you very much for sharing all of that. And now, with all of these huge applications, with all of these huge use cases that are so varied, um, I can only I can only but expect that there has to be some maintenance, routinary maintenance that has to be done to these devices
Mhm.
rather sooner than later, I guess, especially for those that are maybe on a daily basis being used, right? So
Mhm.
how does the maintenance look like for the Atlas, for the Global?
Uh-huh. Yeah, so we have all of the maintenance procedure outlined in our user manual or just in our documentation.
Mm,
And it does come with either a cycle count or a time. And so for routine maintenance, especially as you're first getting used to the Nest, it's going to be more frequent than when you completely understand how the system works and operates and you're comfortable with sending out your drone and monitoring it from a large distance away. And so typically we've got say a few hundred cycles is when we would anticipate routine maintenance. So say at 300 to 500 cycles, you
mm,
just need to come to the nest, open it up, make sure all of the screws are tight, all the seals are still together, the filter is clean, like for the HVAC system, and
hmm.
that there was never a moment when like a lizard ran in right at the single moment that the door was closing, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and so with that, it's we anticipate then as you get more used to the system, it can go towards say 500 plus cycles and then or quarterly kind of maintenance.
Okay, I mean, that was actually something that I was very curious about. So, thank you very much for that. On that same line, I know you already touched this topic in a previous answer, but I would like to delve deeper into it. Um, you already mentioned that there are applications for these many countries, South Africa being one of those, for example. Of course, there has to be a lot of use cases within the US. Um, Number one, do these devices need to have some sort of modifications to it to comply maybe to ruling? Is that something really not necessary, or maybe to adjust to the weather, for example? Like depending on the place, do you make any modifications to these devices, or are they just internationally already sort of standard and accepted?
Yeah, so for some of our systems, so in the Global and Atlas, we've made the temperature control system basically a requirement for these nests.
Mm,
So if it's in any environment over 90 degrees Fahrenheit, it will be self-sustaining. And then as well, the nest is relatively impervious to water ingress or dust ingress. It's not 100% IP rated, but most of the time the drones themselves are rated to a pretty high extent that can take any dust that does enter the system. However, we are building more and more so towards full IP and CE certifications, and so the
right.
modifications that you are talking about are some level of certification by regulatory bodies that then enable larger organizations to procure basically without question. And all of that does take time and energy and capital. And we are a
Of course.
startup. We are still cutting our teeth, but it's not a problem that we aren't actively solving today. Uh,
Right.
and yeah, and yes, sure, some customers may have um, different requirements for their operations, but for the most part, our systems check all of the boxes that they're looking for.
Right, and I mean that is what I would have expected because in the end these are devices that are not really invasive, right? In terms of for regulatory compliance or anything, which is very cool. In the software side, do you have to do any adjustments depending on the location, maybe for flight regulations that could be happening, for example, close to an airport, or maybe there are just areas that there is a lot more ruling around drone
Mhm.
flying. Do you do software wise? Do you do these adjustments, or is that not necessary?
Yeah, so in our scope is really is secluded to the nest at this point, where
Mm.
a lot of the software providers come in and they have the integration with
Oh, I
different
see.
PMs, different yeah, traffic management systems, or different regulatory requirements or no-fly zones.
I see.
So those are built in with our partners that then enable the user to interface with the drone while also being cautious of the surrounding
Right.
airspace.
The power of partnership one more time. That's actually
Mhm.
pretty cool. Now we're already getting close to the ending of this interview. First of all, I wanted to share a little message left in the chat by CryoX company. You know, these
Mhm.
phone developers. Xtronic is doing some amazing things, and I agree with that comment. Thank you very much for living that. Now I wanted to talk a little more about Hextronic's presence because, I mean, you're everywhere. You are in ceremonies, in awards, in expo shows. From
Mhm.
from a development standpoint, how do these conventions and awards and ceremonies, how do they help you just keep going and keep improving your devices?
Yeah, so a lot of these events and expos really give us much needed face time and direct interaction with critical customers and end users of our technology. And so
Mm,
that's where we're able to continue building and fortifying the relationships with the people whose industries we really touch upon. And so with that, yeah, an email request or a phone call does go to a certain extent, but having the end user or customer directly there with you, interfacing with the product and
right,
showing up the vision, how we could all work together. It's really been impactful, not just in our capability to provide a presence at these events, but
right.
also have these conversations that are um, directly related to the growth of Hextronics and to our products.
And that is something that is honestly amazing. I do agree with you. The fact that you can have some really important face to face time with their actual users is probably the best QA that you can get, right? The best QA improvement. So thank you very
Mhm.
much for sharing that. I could honestly keep talking about your devices for a long time, but we are just pretty much right at the end of this journey, of this interview. Kurt, first of all, thank you very much for all of the insights and all of the knowledge and engineering parts that you shared with us. So
Mhm.
before we go, where can we find you and where can we find Hextronics?
Yeah, I mean, Hextronics is online. We've got you can visit our website, our Instagram, our LinkedIn, our YouTube page, all of that. We are going to be at a couple other expos this month, or this year. Basically, there's an Interpol event near the end of October that we'll be present at,
Nice.
and then there's CoMotion out in LA that is looking like we'll be at as well in November. And so if you want to stop by, you can meet us there, or you can ping us on our contact us form, or just yeah, find the team and go bug them on LinkedIn or something.
Yeah, that's I did that actually. I bugged everybody through LinkedIn, and that's how this interview game happened. So recommended. It's very cool. Before I let you go, we already know where to find you. We already know everything, but and we know a lot about Xtronics. But I would like to know a little more about a you, Court, and more specifically your mentality. What
Mhm.
advice do you have for any young person out there who's starting their career in entrepreneur? They're launching the beginning being entrepreneurs, or maybe they're just starting their career in engineering or in the drone world perhaps. What advice do you have for?
Yeah, what I would say is that you can do anything, really, from the point of all of the knowledge is there. You just Google it, or you need to find the right thing to Google, or yeah, look up. And most of the time, if you've got a question that's really bugging you, you can find it out just by doing some research. And the only thing really kind of stopping is the grit and determination. So you just got to have a lot of that. And the way you have a
I
lot of
agree.
that is you're extremely passionate, and you couldn't really see yourself doing anything else at the moment for other than accomplishing dream and goal. And so it's got to be something that you're completely dedicated to, and something that drives you, not just because you'll feel like you accomplished something, but because you feel like what you did has made an impact. And that's how we go about it every day here at Hextronics.
And it is a very, very nice mindset to stop in. If you don't have the grit for it, it's honestly an amazing advice. Thank you very much for that. And I believe that is the perfect closure for this episode, for this interview. It's almost an hour long. Hey, we called it. It's around this time. So that's amazing. Thank you very much for that. Now, to everybody out there, please remember that you can find more information, interesting articles, interviews, shorts, blogs, a lot of content directly on our website, buildernation.io, and also follow us in social media as Builder Nation. We are in LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're everywhere as Builder Nation. We can also hear from you. Thank you very much for that. And again, Curt, thank you very much for joining us. This was an amazing episode. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam.
When building the future is your priority, tedious procurement processes should be last on your list. The problem is that purchasing data is scattered across spreadsheets, receipts, emails, and messages. Tracking it all sucks and makes it easy to commit mistakes. Introducing the Control Hub Way, the all-in-one purchasing software for hardware companies. Buying parts, services, or office supplies? Submit a quick purchase request to buy from your list of approved vendors, or buy from a new provider. Buying from approved vendors is even easier. Import your shopping cart directly into your purchase request using our checkout integrations. When the order is ready, submit it for approval. We'll ping all pre-designated approvers both via Control Hub's website, email, and Slack notifications for a faster turnaround. If you need a PO, we got you. Generate it in one click. Online purchase? Boom, virtual card. Do an automatic three-way match, pay invoices, and sync everything live with QuickBooks or NetSuite. Purchasing just got a lot easier. Control Hub. Get back to building.